radio purposes.
My name is Wayne Kublal Singh. On my immediate left is Ms. Leela Budhai. And on her immediate left is Mr. Suresh Chaitu. And on his left is a gentleman whose name I've just forgotten again. Jason Ash. Jason Ash.
Doctor, tell us what's happening here today.
Well, we have a message that we would like the political elites, the bureaucrats and the technocrats of Trinidad and Tobago to listen to. We think it is high time that they got over their tabanka over the gas base, foreign exchange, economy. Because if nothing else is in recession, that economy is in recession, and it is going into a permanent recession. Because we in Trinidad and Tobago can no longer, and we repeat this, and we've been repeating this over the last 6 or 7 months, we can no longer produce oil and gas at competitive rates in the global oil and gas industry. It's simply impossible. And therefore, as technocrats, thinkers, think tanks, bureaucrats, politicians, parliamentarians, we need to get over our tabanka over this oil gas based forex industry and do the right thing. What is the solution? Solution is to start immediately deploying our resources on the ground. Start immediately deploying our resources on the ground and looking again at infrastructural assets of Trinidad and Tobago. And we're saying this because it is directly relevant to our position, which we have been advocating correctly, we believe, since 2004. We've been fighting the battle against David to Mondesir to reroute it since 2004, using the same points. We ought not to pass a highway through David to Mondesir, for the simple reason is there are too many high-valued economic, social, ecological, and financial assets in this area, infrastructural assets. And we find it very, very distressing, and we must take a very strong, a radical position against Dr. Suraj Ramachan, who has been using his position in Parliament to advocate for the David to Mondesir highway. We know that he himself has personal interest in David to Mondesir highway. We know that. And he's been using the privilege of Parliament to advocate for his personal interests rather than the national interests. He is not only content with himself smashing the UNC and his government, but he now wants to smash the people of David to Mondesir. He is using arguments which are totally unjustified, baseless, unscientific, and completely illogical. So we want to warn him to desist. So that what we are saying is, and what we are here to show in this particular press conference, using our PowerPoint, we want to show the nation once again all of the high-valued economic assets of David to Mondesir, which ought not to be destroyed for a simple piece of highway infrastructure. Because these assets are very valuable to us, we know what it is. The street architecture, the manufacturing companies, the trading system, the commercial centers, the houses, the homesteads, the water assets, the Irapooch Lagoon, all of that constitute very valuable economic assets. And if the government is serious about development, they will get over their tabanka over this gas-based forex economy and start deploying resources on the ground to develop and grow these infrastructural assets, right? So we will now go to Ms. Leela Budhai, who will really read our press release. It will take just about 5 minutes.
Leela Budhai. All right, good day, everyone. The recession and David to Mondesir. Trinidad and Tobago is in a recession. our gas-based foreign exchange economy can no longer be the mainstay of our economy. We cannot sustainably sell oil and gas at competitive rates in the global economy. We have now reached a point where we have no choice but to take serious economic stock. We must now focus on our existing economic infrastructure to provide economic growth. Our communities, road connectivity, manufacturing, agricultural lands, water, and ecological assets to provide production, trade, and commerce. Is it in our economic interest to build one piece of highway infrastructure with its 5 interchanges on a 9-mile stretch of road to fragment the infrastructure of 13 communities with their rich system of commerce, trade, manufacturing, with 3 million multi-million-dollar corporations? Is it in our economic interest to build one piece of highway infrastructure which the Inter-American Development Bank rejects as over-designed, over-expensive, and poorly tendered to fragment the farm infrastructure of entire districts, to dump 1.4 million tons of aggregate on agricultural lands? Is it in our economic interest to build one piece of highway infrastructure to fragment the rich infrastructure of traffic-free roads between Debe and Mondesir? The traffic is not between Debe and Mondesir. It is on the Superior Aryan Main Road and the Old Southern Main Road. Is it in our economic interest to build one piece of highway infrastructure on rich and complex hydrological infrastructure of the Oropouche wetlands? Hasn't the Institute of Marine Affairs warned that this would lead to flooding and squatter expansionism over the basket for food for Debe and Pinal markets? Is it in our economic interest to ignore 3 evidence-based reports on the matter: the Armstrong report, the IADB report, the IMA report, reports written by experts and scientists? The highway reroute movement is very familiar with the unscientific and baseless argument of eminent parliamentarians calling for the Debe to Mondesir. One of them is Dr. Suraj Rambachan. The other is Dr. Boydradan Tiwari. We know them very well. When we met with the former Prime Minister at the Diplomatic Center in 2013, Dr. Rambachan was whispering wrong answers into the Prime Minister's ears. Dr. Tiwari was bracing for the honorable member of Siparia when she got her answers wrong. Not only are they content with fragmenting themselves, they want to fragment our economical, social, and ecological infrastructural assets. We also know of the parliamentarians who own lands in these districts, hoping to capitalize out of pure and naked self-interest. Ladies and gentlemen, the gas-based forex economy is no longer going to cut it. Declining oil assets and uncompetitive gas recovery costs mean that this economy will no longer sustainably support us. Debe to Mondesir is an economic crime because it destroys in a large scale the very asset which we must now turn to for economic growth and prosperity. Thank you.
You want to say something? Try to say something.
Suresh Chaitu. At this juncture, the section between Debe and Mondesir must be halted because it does not make economic sense, and hence we should consider diversification of the economy and consider strongly our agricultural sector in these areas for full production. That's about it for now. No?
Jason Nash from the OWTU. What I want to say is about the agency home now. In Princestown right now, Fairfield, Matilda, they have about 200 homes, right, and a set of grass growing around it. I don't know why it is they don't give out the poor citizen it. Because I don't know why it is they waiting until the ending of the election then to give out the houses. Right? Because when I do a watch around, I do a survey, I see a set of home, and I have nobody in it. So I don't know why they won't give out the houses on them. Yeah, thank you.
All right, the purpose of this PowerPoint is to give a summary graphic representation of the infrastructural assets, the very valuable infrastructural assets between Debe to Mondesir. Now remember, the ordinary citizens of Debe to Mondesir have been fighting against this highway for a route of it since 2004, 2005. So they know what they stand to lose. They know what is close to them. They know what they have grown up with. They know the value of these assets. And we have tried in this particular presentation to give a sense of some of these infrastructural assets. And we do not think it is just, it is fair, and we always fight for economic, social, ecological justice, to have one piece of man-made infrastructure destroying 5 or 6 large pieces of financial, economic, social, and ecological infrastructure. So this is to demonstrate that point. Terry? All right, for comparison, I just wanted to show you the other part of the highway which we support. This here, of course, is the Gulf of Paria, right? And to those who are familiar with it, this here basically is San Fernando proper, yeah? And you go along San Fernando here and you reach somewhere here, Gulf City Mall, and you come across here, this is the Mosquito Creek, this is the mangrove area here, and you go down to St. Mary's, and when you reach St. Mary's, you go inland towards Mondesir, and from Mondesir, you go along pipelines and forests, straight here to Dunlop Junction. You can actually see a beaten track which has already been made by the OAS and NITCO. So, if you look at this, remember, this is San Fernando here, this is Labray here, this is Point Fortin here. If you look at this, the important thing to note is this is circumventing a lot of the old road, that is the Southern Main Road. And that is why we support this. But the other major point is that when you look at this, going through here, you'll find that this is not putting in any or serious danger any huge infrastructural assets. From here to here, San Fernando to St. Mary's is basically a road widening job. So you're not really passing over any serious settlements, any ecological system, serious settlements. You're going along here, which is basically village and town free, and along here. See? This is in contrast with this part here, which is from Debe to Mondesir, this part here. Debe to Mondesir. If you look at this path from Debe here to Mondesir, you see that these parts here, if you look at it, the gray parts, the highway is running smack through a very rich cluster of settlements. Look at it very carefully. You see the gray parts, smack destroying streets, homes, over 300 homes, business settlements, about 4 multi-million-dollar businesses, commercial areas, farming areas. You can actually see the settlements here in the background, all right? So that's a huge infrastructural asset. Most of the people here own agricultural lands, and most of them own lands which are freehold lands. In other words, they don't have to go to the government to complain and beg for money when the bond comes. They own their own properties. So that is one big asset. The people here have been living in this area for 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, some of them for 150 years. And the highway is going to be built on an embankment, 8 to 12 feet, through smack running through this cluster here of settlement, right along here. And this is basically an amplified view of it. You can actually see the highway passing through this cluster, this rich network, this rich arterial system of settlements, which is very different. This here is a street structure. Now you would think when you listen to the last government, Debe to Mondesir, which runs along here, that there were no other streets, and there was a lot of traffic here. There is no traffic here between Mondesir and Debe. No traffic at all between Debe here and Mondesir, simply because you have a very rich structure of connector roads here. At any time of the day, midday, morning, evening, peak hour, there is no traffic here because this rich network of streets absorbs the traffic. The traffic is along here. See Paria, Erin Main Road and along here historically. That's where the traffic is. It does not run between Debe and Mount Desir. It does not run here at all. So this is where you're building a highway connecting here to here and basically fragmenting in a very serious way this existing local street infrastructure. Now this map looks pretty unappetizing. I mean, it looks very blank, but they're running the highway along here. But if you look closely, these patches here, if you look at these geometrical formations there, look at them, all along, you see? All these geometrical formations there. That is basically agricultural lands. And the highway would be passing right along here, see? And the river, of course, is running along this side, right along here. Now, as I said, it looks pretty unappetizing and dull and boring, but when you get onto the ground itself, this is a Google map, this is what it looks like. This is Mr. Sogrim, poor Mr. Sogrim and his farm. His farm has been cut off from the main road because of the highway embankment, and he occasionally suffers from this water which backs up from the river because the highway cannot really mitigate the sheet flow impacts on agricultural land. We must stress that. The highway cannot mitigate sheet flow impacts on agricultural land, and there are thousands of instances of this. Poor Mr. Devanan, he's not an ordinary farmer. He looks very ordinary standing there alone. He's a man who makes hundreds of $1,000s a year planting okra and a number of crops, pumpkin and so on. He sells in the Debe market. He's a businessman. There is poor Mr. Devanan again. Water from the river backing up because of poor highway drainage, backing up into his plantation. So this is the third piece of infrastructure. And this basically shows the hydrological infrastructure of the area. This here is basically Debe, and it's cutting across here to Mount Desir, Debe to Mount Desir. And this shows you the entire Oropouche wetland system. You see, it's not a small piece of land. It's thousands and thousands of hectares of acres of land. And they all drain this wetland system by a series of arteries. Look at it, coming from the north, coming from the east as far as Barrackpore and so on, coming from the south as far as Sipari and so on, as far as Faizabad and so on, coming up here. See? And all of this is converging right here where they want to build the highway. So the question is, how is all this water here going to flow across this wetland system, this mangrove system, to get here to the Mosquito Creek? The highway itself cannot mitigate the sheet flow impacts, as we just said, of all of this water coming in here, and there's going to be a lot of flooding and a lot of fragmentation of the Oropouche Lagoon system, a fragmentation of a food basket. All of this area here provides all, and I'm certain I have to say all, of the food which goes into the Debe market and the Penal market. Remember, Armstrong said to proceed with this highway, you have to do a hydrological study of this area, and they have not done that. So basically, if you put a highway here, it's basically going to put a choke, a collar, around the neck of this hydrological system. This basically shows you the variety and the complexity of the lagoon system itself. Highway wants to go here. See, so it's basically cutting straight through the system. You see, this here is the mangrove system. This part in blue, for example, that's the marsh system. This part in purple here is the waterway. This part here, for example, in green is the forest area. This part here is the wetland pasture system. So it's a very complex system, very, very complex system. And nobody really understands exactly how it functions unless you could do a comprehensive agricultural and hydrological study of this part. Remember, the IMA said in 2004, if you build a highway here, it will encourage squatter settlements here, and it would basically disturb and fragment the flow regime across the Oropouche Lagoon. So this is the infrastructure which you're dealing with. Here's some pictures of the Oropouche Lagoon. This is basically what it looks like. Yeah, this is basically what it looks like. This is an interesting statistic. The Americans 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago built highways across the Everglades. Today, all of them, without exception, realized that it was a fundamental error. They built roads, they built canals, they put businesses and properties and squatter settlements across the Everglades system, this entire system, and today they're paying US $13.5 billion to mitigate the impacts of this. One of the things that they're doing, for example, is they're raising the roads or the stanchions to reestablish the flow regime. Another thing that they're doing is, for example, they're destroying some of the roads. Some of them are filling up the artificial canals or plugging the canals. Some of them are acquiring properties, the farmlands and so on, which are polluting the Everglades. So what we are saying is this system has been severely compromised, and in retrospect, they've realized they've made enormous blunders, which you today have to pay for. The government, if it wants to continue with debit to Monday Zero, they have to answer not us, but the Institute of Marine Affairs, which said in 2006, if you build a highway across debit to Monday Zero, across the lagoon system, it will fragment the wetland and you will have loss of species. It will alter the flow regime across the wetlands, leading to agricultural underproduction, and you have a tremendous buildup of squatter communities along the path of the highway. The IADB refused to grant a loan for this particular project, saying it was overdesigned, it was overexpensive, and it had concerns about the flawed tendering process. And of course, the Armstrong report, which arose out of a hunger strike in 2012, said that the certificate of environmental clearance for this project was flawed and should have been returned to the applicant, and that it ought not to continue unless a hydrological study, a social impact assessment, and an environmental cost-benefit analysis is done in order to determine whether the work should go forward. So that's basically it. This is what the IADB also said in a report written about Trinidad and Tobago in 2004. In other words, what they're saying is our concept. If you want to build a highway there, you don't just look at the highway and the benefits of the highway. You have to look at the impacts. Look at the impacts on the other infrastructural systems. Look at the impacts of the family homes. Look at the impacts on the farmland system. Look at the impacts of the water system. Look at the impacts on the ecological system. Look at the impacts of the businesses and the commercial system and the cultural systems. Because a highway doesn't subsist on its own. It subsists in conjunction with other peripheral and nearby systems. And they have not done that. They have admitted they have not done that. And the American Development Bank told them that in 2004. Look at all the systems to determine the way forward. Right? So we think that if the government goes forward with debit to Monday Zero, they'll be committing an economic crime. And we want to urge them to do what Dr. Rowley said on the political platform, that if they have a decision to make, it will be based on science, it will be based on logic, and that he would surely alter projects which are inimical to the public interest. Thank you. That's it, sir? Any questions?